It's hard to believe it's already been a year since Yakuza 8 was released. And and honestly, I feel like this game definitely should have sold way more than it did, especially considering the fact that the franchise has been around for I'd say like 20 years now because the first Yakuza game came out back in 2005. And there was a lot of hype surrounding this game before it was released a year ago. And for those who don't know, the game came out back in January of 2024. It was released on multiple game systems like the PS5, Xbox Series X. I think it was on PC. Um, yeah, it was on just about every game system except the Switch when it came out. And shortly after the game was released, like weeks after it came out, it was reported the game had broke a million in terms of sales, which was something that a lot of people was impressed by. And the thing is, ever since then, it doesn't seem like we've gotten much of an update in terms of how well the game is done from a sales standpoint. And and honestly, I feel like this is a game that definitely should have performed better than it did on a commercial level. But you look at all the RPGs that came out this past year. You look at games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Dragon's Dogma 2, Black Myth Wukong. You look at Metaphor and Fantasio. You look at Persona 3 Reload. Um, there was definitely some games out there that somewhat overshadowed Yakuza 8 on a commercial level, and I feel like games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth definitely like took the shine off of Yakuza 8 to some extent. And like I said in previous videos, Metaphor and Fantasio was named RPG of or the best RPG of 2024 by a couple of gaming publications. And I think that has more to do with the fact that it looked very similar to that of Persona 5 in terms of aesthetics and gameplay to some extent. And Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is something that was heavily hyped. And that was the game that was a sequel to the Final Fantasy VII remake, which came out in 2020. And the funny thing is, Yakuza 7 came out back in 2020 as well. So yeah, I mean, I feel like Yakuza 8 should have been released maybe this year in 2025 because it probably would have stood out more. It definitely would have gotten overshadowed if it was released back in 2023, but it is what it is. And you look at the game, Yakuza 8. The game has 14 chapters, 10 party members. I heard rumors that originally it was supposed to have like 8 party members because it was, Yakuza 8 or whatever, but they decided to change it up. And I don't know. I mean, I've seen a lot of people talk about, Yakuza's 8 story and how the story was either underwhelming or the plot was just a mess or whatever, and people liked the plot for Yakuza 7 a lot more, which is, I guess it's understandable. And I think like part of the problem is there's like so many characters in the game that's kind of hard to focus on one particular character and just, trying to make the story revolve mainly around that person and whatever. But but yeah, I mean, a lot of people feel like towards the end of the game, everything was rushed with certain characters like, joining in on the story so late. I feel like Ichiban and Kiru probably should have been I think they should have been like the two main characters that should have been like focused on more in that game opposed to having a party of 10. But at the same time, I think Yakuza 7 had a party of multiple characters as well. And I think that's one of the things that makes, Yakuza more interesting is that you have like more characters you can focus on. But you look at RPGs in general, normally normally, high profile RPGs have like maybe one or two or even three main characters that they focus on or whatever. But everybody's style is different. Everybody's preferences are different, and and yeah, I feel like, there are things that definitely could have been done better in this game, but at the same time, I wouldn't say that the game was necessarily bad because it got a meta score of 89 and it got like a user score of 8.5. And for the most part, I do feel that like as a role playing game, it was definitely one of the best titles of 2024. So I mean, I don't know. I think the whole turn based combat system thing was something that I don't know. I mean, that may have been something that could have hurt this game to some extent because turn-based combat, even though like there are people who like, that type of gameplay, um, in some ways it's somewhat obsolete because a lot of people have more preference in action RPGs nowadays. And that's especially true with 3D games in general. And some feel like maybe Yakuza should have employed more of a, action RPG style with like, real time elements and stuff like that. But at the same time, the whole turn based gameplay is old school. It's something that was popular with RPGs back in the day. And it's cool to see um, that particular form of gameplay get some love in this current generation of gaming. But but yeah, I definitely feel like this is a game that should have sold more considering how heavily hyped it was because if I'm not mistaken, the game was announced back in 2022. And I feel like this game is something that definitely it definitely should have been a bigger deal than it was. It definitely should have gotten more mainstream attention than it did. But at the same time, I mean, 2024 has kind of been, I don't know, it's been a decent year for video game releases, but at the same time, it was not really a good year for gaming, mainly because you look at all the stuff that has happened, all the job cuts, and the fact that there are like companies shutting down offices and stuff in America and in different parts of the world due to rising costs and due to the economy taking a turn for the worse. It's just to a point where a lot of people are looking at 2023 as like probably the best year that we've had in gaming in quite some time. And I'm not exactly sure whether or not 2025 is going to be any better than 2023. I don't think that's necessarily the case because with 2023, we had a lot to look forward to. 2025, there's a couple of things to look forward to, and we might have some surprises along the way. But I mean, I could definitely see 2025 being a better year than 2024 in terms of video game releases, but I don't see it being as good as 2023. And as far as another Yakuza game is concerned, like if we get like a Yakuza 9, I don't see it coming out anytime in the near future since this game just came out. I can see Yakuza 9 coming out a little bit later down the line, like somewhere around 2027, 2028. Don't take my word for it, but that's just a prediction. But but yeah, it might take some time for this game to, sell more than just like 1 mil or whatever. But I don't know, because it's only been a year, and obviously, as popular as Yakuza is, it's still to some extent like pretty niche because it's something that casuals don't talk too much about. It's something um, that hasn't really gotten too much mainstream attention in the past, at least prior to the 2020s decade for the most part. And the thing is, like the older Yakuza games are like highly underrated for the most part, and I feel that like just recently, within the past like couple of years or so, Yakuza's been getting the type of attention that it really deserves, and I feel like, Yakuza 8 is definitely one of those games that people should check out despite what people have to say about it because you look at the game, its aesthetics, its gameplay, and I guess like the just like the environments, the way they look, and and how impressive they look compared to other RPGs for the most part. I honestly feel like it makes for a fun, interesting game. I do feel like the story definitely could have been better than what we got, but at the same time, you can't really complain. I don't see too many people, complaining about that. And the complaints about the game overall has been minor. So yeah, Yakuza 8, I definitely feel like is a game that could have sold more for the most part. But as far as um as far as Sega is concerned, Yakuza is not necessarily their main attraction for the most part because if I'm not mistaken, this is something that was published by Sega. I think it may have been published by Atlas in Japan, but it was mainly published by Sega. Um, you got the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise that people are paying more attention to in relation to Sega. People are still waiting for Persona 6 to come out in relation to Atlas and yeah, I feel like Yakuza 8 is definitely a game that deserved to sell more than it did, but at the same time, you can't force people to like something that they're just not interested in. Um, and I do feel like Yakuza 8 is definitely going to eventually sell more as time goes by.